Welcome. In this demonstration, Infogain will showcase a reference architecture for the National Council for Prescription Drug Programs protocol adoption in an Oracle business-to-business context. We will also outline the benefits of using Oracle middleware as the foundation for this Ncpdp solution. Just as HIPAA, HL7, and EBXML are typical standards followed by health regulatories for day-to-day transactions, Ncpdp is a prescribed electronic standard for the transmission of pharmacy industry data that are created, modified, and exchanged between doctors, pharmacies, and healthcare service providers. We see here in the given example that HealthMax, a service provider, is acting as the host. One of its partners, Pharma A Pharmaceuticals, is operating in an Ncpdp version D0 environment. As such, when HealthMax receives an electronic health verification check request from Pharma A, it must first transform the data into its own current Ncpdp version D1 format. Only then can it accurately integrate the request with its back-end systems and deliver the needed response to its business partner, Pharma A. However, to handle claims billing, HealthMax relies on its claims settlement partner, who also operates using Ncpdp version D1. Therefore, in order to maintain regulatory compliance, HealthMax must be able to manage a multi-protocol business-to-business environment, including multiple EDI standards. This handshake of transactions, requests, and acknowledgments managed via the Ncpdp standard is typical of a business-to-business environment where the primary service provider is the hub or host, and the other entities are partners or spokes. To effectively perform the data transformation and exchange, we need a system which supports defining the Ncpdp specifications, defining the partner data exchange agreements, managing multiple partners and the associated agreements, and importantly, an integration layer to do transformations. Infogain's reference architecture leverages Oracle Fusion middleware, Oracle B2B, and Oracle Document Editor as the foundation for the Ncpdp solution and partner management. There are many advantages to this approach, the most important of which is establishing a single-point solution for all EDI B2B transactions in the hub or host environment. This enables easier maintenance, greater control, improved SLAs, standards compliance, and full auditability. Let's now look behind the scenes to see how this reference architecture handles partner management, the request-response protocol handshake, and data conversion. In our example, Pharma A and HealthMax are two fictitious business entities. Pharma A utilizes Ncpdp version D0 standard message format. HealthMax is using the Ncpdp version D1 standard. The first step is to model the document standards. Here we use the Oracle Document Editor. This tool supports multiple EDI standards, such as EDI, HL7, Ncpdp, RosettaNet, and so on. We will now generate two specs for the data exchange agreements. One is for the inbound Ncpdp D0 standard data spec, and the other is for the Ncpdp D1 standard data spec. We can also export the schema used for these two standards from the editor. In this example, we will focus on the E1 eligibility verification message. The Oracle B2B console has a Partner Configurations module where we can link a partner with one or more agreements. In the Administration module, we can register the documents and channels on which both the host and partners can listen to the transport protocols. Here we have defined two protocols separately, one for the Ncpdp D0 request, and the other for the Ncpdp D1 response. In order to establish this request and response in the D0 and D1 formats respectively, we utilize the positional file system to associate the specs for the B2B engine to understand. Here we see that the B2B engine is supplied with the spec and the XSD schema for Ncpdp D1 standards. Similarly, the Ncpdp D0 standard is also registered here. Now let's look at the partner configurations that we have established. First, Pharma A and HealthMax are exchanging data and they are configured as partners. Second, we have configured which documents they can send and what they can receive. Third, the channels on which they will send or receive these documents. We can see here that Pharma A is an Ncpdp D0 sender and an Ncpdp D1 receiver, whereas it is the opposite for HealthMax. Next, we see the channels on which the partners and host can listen. We are using the local file structure and file system as our transport. We can choose from the defined combinations, which include HTTP, FTP, SFTP, and others. Here we have created the inbound and outbound file structures to manage the document requests and responses. We also have created archive folders to hold the processed data for audit purposes. We have defined two agreements for the inbound and outbound messages. These agreements are deployed to the Oracle B2B server. When the data exchange occurs, these agreements will be executed and the data are validated using the XSD spec which we defined earlier. So as we can see, HealthMax is now capable of performing all inbound and outbound transactions within Ncpdp compliance standards. Now let's look at what happens in the end-to-end message transaction flow. Here, our back-end systems are invoked for tracking and consumption. This is where seamless B2B integration is critical. We have implemented an integration composite process to listen for B2B messages. It will process and convert the D0 message to a D1 message and write it to the output channel from which the Oracle B2B server will pick it up and send it to the requester in the folder specified in our established agreements. The composite service reads the file from the folder and executes the required transformation and data conversion, and then writes it to a directory from where the B2B server picks it up again. The integration process reads the D0 data and translates it to D1 data and writes it back to the target. The composite service is deployed and we can see the audit from the EM console. In this composite service, we can have a query or back-end system call to back-end applications, such as SAP, ERP, health data systems, and so on, using inbuilt adapters as required by the business process. Let's drop a sample file with D0 data into one end of the B2B chain. We can see that the D0 file is first moved to the location specified in the inbound agreement. Then the integration process converts it to a D1 file and hands it off to the B2B server that listens to the directory. We will see the audit in the B2B reports. Here we have two messages that reach the B2B process, the inbound message and the outbound message. The reports also show the sender and the requester. Let's now review the transaction detail in the B2B reports. We can see that all the details such as document type, status of message, agreement details, source, and target are included. We can also verify the message content. We will now open the integration instance and refresh it so that it can display the recently created instance. We can now see that it read the file, performed the transformation, and then wrote the result to a file. Similarly, we can check the outbound transaction details. In reviewing the audit trail, we can now see that the Oracle B2B server enables us to manage a multi-protocol data exchange between business partners. Oracle Fusion and Oracle B2B together provide a solid foundation for managing the complexity of business-to-business data exchange, back-end system integration, and ongoing compliance with industry standards. This concludes Infogain's demonstration of a reference architecture for streamlining Ncpdp compliance within your B2B trading environment. For more information, please visit our website at www.infogain.com. Thank you.